This is the Visible Voices minicast, and I'm your host, Dr. Resa Lewiss. Audience, I'm so excited to share another minicast episode. You may recall that a minicast is simply a shorter episode focused on a specific topic. And the 2025 topic is coaching, because we all need help in our professional journeys and do better with help along the way. I'm here with Chris Hare. Chris is host of the Storied Future podcast and principal at the Storied Future, where he helps CEOs create new narratives that elevate their executive brands, transform their companies, and disrupt their industries. Or as Chris says, I help leaders use vulnerable storytelling to earn trust as they navigate high-stakes transitions, transformations, and transactions. In the next few minutes, you'll hear about atomic storytelling, Chris's path to becoming a coach, and something you can take home from this episode on your own professional journey. Chris, welcome to the Visible Voices minicast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excited to have you. Atomic storytelling, what is it?
So it's essentially discovering whether it's yourself as a leader, your customers, your partners, uncovering the stories that have been hidden or forgotten or are overlooked, and really finding the stories that matter most and tapping into those as raw material to create a new and better future.
Yeah. And this is different than just focusing on, for example, the delivery of a story.
Correct. So oftentimes we focus on, like you said, the structure and the delivery, but very few people focus on what is the story that we should be telling. And when we're so trapped in or stuck in or focused on the narrative that we've been telling for years, oftentimes that needs to be disrupted. And so I use processes to help people uncover those stories that are the ones that are really resonant and that are really going to create an unlock for them.
I love that. And I, too, really, really value storytelling and the actual content of the story to really make a point, illustrate, example, a microscale. Now, in your case, how did you make this transition from C-suite to atomic storytelling coach?
Yeah, so my background is big tech, Amazon, Microsoft, et cetera. And I was working, after I left those companies, I was working in marketing for a long time, working with big tech companies as well. And I really came to a place where I wanted to see change and transformation happen. So I didn't decide right out of the gate I was going to become a coach. I shifted into narrative strategy. And one of the first companies I worked with 5 years on, the new narrative I built is still transforming the company. And I was like, I realized in that moment that I love change. And I wasn't seeing that happen before. And then I started my podcast and leaders would come on, and I did it just for brand building and business development. And leaders started coming on and telling these remarkable stories that were not only impacting their companies, but also transforming them. And one of those leaders who led this remarkable transformation as a company and used our interview as part of that said to me afterwards, all of that was great, this amazing turnaround that he led of a $1 billion plus company. He said, but the most important part for me is most powerful part is how hearing my story is transforming me as a leader. So that was really the aha, is the gift that we can give others in telling our story, and then also how it elevates us as humans and as leaders.
I love that. More on this big tech to coach transition. There was something a little bit more personal for you.
Yeah. So when I was at Amazon, I was in a place where effectiveness was prized above everything else. And it was a high fear environment and had a very toxic leader that I reported to, and came to a place because of challenges that I had going into it. And then the way he exacerbated those in that environment, I nearly took my life. And it was a years-long recovery process. And what took me to the edge in making that decision that I couldn't have come back from, obviously, is a broken internal narrative. And I could, in a longer conversation, walk through how I got to that, but really had to rewrite that internal narrative or that tape in order to come out on the other side of that. 2020, my marriage came to an end. My wife and I are now back together, but same scenario. The thing that took me to that place was having a broken internal narrative and had to rewrite it. So I finally realized, wait a second, and research actually bears this out. Spencer Stewart did the research. Herminia Ibarra and others in HBR did an article called The Leadership Odyssey. And it shows that it's no longer enough to just be effective as a leader. You also have to blend it with human-centered skills. And the piece that I add as well is not just skills, values. And so it's really about, for me, helping leaders create a future where they're celebrated, not just for what they've built, which is where most of our world focuses, but how they built it, who they took with them, who they became in the process. And the tools to do that, the inputs are the atomic stories from across their journey that can fuel a better future. And then the narrative is the path to get there.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that and going deeper. Sometimes when audience members listen to the podcast, they're like, Resa, you're a doctor. Like, why do you, for example, speak with someone in big tech? But what you shared illustrates exactly why. What you're saying about what was going on in your industry is exactly what happens in healthcare and in medicine and in emergency medicine in terms of burnout, moral injury, potentially toxic supervisors, potentially toxic workplaces. Not all, but certainly some. And how can we rewrite the narrative internally to help shift that external? So when I've had other coaches come on, I ask them to pick one word that might be a characteristic, a thread of their clients, of the stories of their clients. And examples are overwhelm, shame, incivility. So if you were to pick one word, one thread of the clients with whom you work, is there one you could give us?
Dissatisfied or disconnected. And by disconnected, I don't mean disconnected from reality. They're high performers. I get to work with some amazing human beings, but they feel, I should say, a disconnect. Not they are disconnected. They feel a disconnect between who they are inside and the work that they're doing, between the work that they're doing and the purpose they feel they need to manifest in the world, between their past and present and the future that they want to create. So they feel a disconnect or a gap and want to close that.
So what is it like when a client works with you? What does it look like to work with Coach Chris Hare?
So I tell people it's going to be really uncomfortable at times and it feels messy, meaning in order to use the word disrupt, talking about the marketplace, but I also have to disrupt my clients, because when we have a narrative that's set, the stories we tell support that narrative. And so I have to use tools through visualization of the future, through storytelling across their journey, and other tools to unearth the stories that they've buried or forgotten about. And so at times it can feel like, where are we going from their perspective? But it's my job. I tell them it's my job to keep an eye on the thread, and I actually create chaos so that we can unearth that and then bring order to it and build a narrative. That one of my clients, actually, the first time he met with me, he described it to someone else. He said, in the first 5 minutes, I'm like, this guy, Chris, is amazing. He's brilliant. He totally gets it. And then the rest of the call, I'm like, this guy has no clue. Like, why is he asking all these weird questions? And in the last 5 minutes, he's like, holy cow, who is this guy, Chris? He totally gets it. So I think that's kind of the journey that often happens.
Is it a series of meetings, a series of sessions for a certain number of time, certain length of time? What kind of structure might there be?
Yeah. So what I'm moving into now is, like, my gift is the interview. So it's creating a space where leaders tell the story they've never told before in a way that, yes, increases their effectiveness, but also transforms them as a leader. And that's what I care most about. So that's the gate to working with me, is telling your story of your journey. And then from there, it can be, as small as a 1-day workshop to work on a specific thing, or the deep dive is, either 3 months or spread out across 12 months, really visualizing what the current future trajectory is and helping people really uncover those scenes. And I use a movie theater visualization where you visualize the last week of your life or the first day or first week of retirement. And it starts to play scenes from across your life and pull those out. And then we do storytelling across their journey. And then we do 360s, where I have people who, a lot of the leaders I work with are, 40s, 50s, 60s, and are going through a significant transition. And so they have a lot of stories, and they also need to hear an outside perspective on who they are, what their values are in their stories. So then we do 360 storytelling with people who known them a long time, care about them, and want them to succeed. And I've seen some remarkable transformations, especially through that last piece, because it gives them a lens on who they are that they haven't seen.
Yeah, it seems like a very, very supportive, nurturing storytelling and coaching process. How do clients generally find you?
Up to this point, it's been word of mouth. And then I'm starting to expand beyond that. But up to this point, it's been either word of mouth or through networks.
Got it. And books. I'm a big reader, and I believe in the power of reading. If you were to select, and there are many I'm sure you could point to, is there one book you could point the readers to as a good place to start, or something that you find valuable or you tell your clients to read?
Yeah, so I'm actually reading, I just have the preface, the introduction, and the first chapter for Primal Intelligence by Angus Fletcher. at Ohio State's Project Narrative. And I sent him a message yesterday. We're doing a LinkedIn Live in a couple weeks as he's doing his book launch. And I emailed him yesterday and I said, I feel like somebody gets me finally. And so he's done a lot of work on storytelling and uncovering the way he describes what I call atomic storytelling as plot twists. So they found that with special operators, but then have brought into the business world into working, I believe, with doctors, with folks across all different industries, that if we can uncover these moments from our past, they can shift the future for us. So really excited to dive into that with him and explore really what sets humans apart from machines and that power that will never be able to be replaced in the creativity that we have as humans.
Yeah, I love that you just said machines. I just had a spark go off. AI, is AI playing a role at all in your work with clients as a coach?
A little bit. It's more on the back end. Like I'm about to start moving into building products, but the products that I'm looking at are not to replace. It's really to supplement the magic of humans and human stories and that sort of thing. So I have a working demo with a learning and development company that I'm partnering with that has an AI storytelling coach. So there'll be a rubric that we measure against. And so you can deliver and measure at scale. But the coach is not focused on, primarily doesn't start with creating a story for you like ChatGPT would or some other AI platform. It's really about pulling out the inputs, right? So Resa, you told me the story when you were 25. You had this meeting with a boss who shot you this dirty look and told you you'd never go anywhere, or on the positive side. Then it asks you like, okay, what was going on in that moment? How did you feel? What happened inside of you when you got that look, right? What decisions did you make as a result of that? So it's really pulling out the inputs and helping find those stories. So I think for me, where I'm seeing the opportunity for that is really ability to scale and help a lot more people. So first responders, combat veterans, that sort of thing, where it's a tool that they can use, a tool in their toolkit to uncover specifically stories from their past that can spark joy, peace, resilience, healing, that sort of thing.
Fantastic. I asked the coaches also to leave the audience. Can you leave the audience with one skill, one action, one tip that they can learn right now, taught by you, coached by you right now? When they finish this episode, they're like, I'm going to start applying this to me in my professional journey today.
Yeah, I tell people that the best place, honestly, to start with storytelling is with story listening, actually. And really not just looking at facts, but also looking at emotion and energy in the person who's telling the story. So really being intentional. So for example, if you go to the break room and there's a colleague there, asking them, an easy question to ask that will reveal a lot about a person is, if you could only take me to that place where you're doing the thing that brings you joy, where you could just go for 20 hours, forget to eat, and life just flies by, right? Ask that question and just sit back, see how they answer. Don't jump in, but ask questions, tell me more, and that sort of thing to really uncover even more and just get to know them and see how them telling their story inspires you. But really giving that gift of listening to someone else, I think that's a great place to start. And as we hear those stories, as we take it in, it can also help us start to become more open about our own stories.
The Visible Voices podcast amplifies voices in the healthcare, equity, and current trend spaces. Our team includes Dr. Giuliano DePortu and me, Dr. Resa Lewiss. Find me at Resa Lewiss MD on social media or visit thevisiblevoicespodcast.com. Find us wherever you listen to podcasts and watch our episodes on YouTube. This podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by our hosts and guests are their own and do not reflect the opinions of their institutions. Information shared here should never substitute for clinical judgment or for medical advice. Together, we're making healthcare more equitable, one visible voice at a time.